Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, and welcome to this qualifying preview here on this Friday night for, of course, qualifying day tomorrow on Saturday at the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. Great to be back, obviously, from the summer break. And, obviously, this weekend is, the Belgian Grand Prix weekend is always an exciting one. Qualifying tends to be exciting almost every time we have qualifying here at Spa. And with some certain grid penalties that we've heard or that have been announced for the race on Sunday, it really could be a very exciting session tomorrow, and we could see, at least starting on pole position for Sunday's race, a surprise person, someone who maybe has had pole position in the past but hasn't had one as of late, or doesn't really get that many period. So it's going to be an interesting day tomorrow. And what we're going to be doing in this stream is, obviously, I'll go through all the teams, look at how they did today and how their pace is looking and how realistically I think they'll do tomorrow. And I'm going to predict it for dry conditions because that's mostly the conditions we have had today. We might get some rain tomorrow, we'll see. It is Spa. There is always rain in the area when it comes to this area of Belgium. So yeah, we'll go through the teams, look at how I think they'll do. We'll also get into the Practice 1 and Practice 2 results, data from FP2, and looking at the sector time data to see just who was looking quick today and who was not. And we will get into, the engine penalty situation, because there's quite a few drivers who are going to be taking grid penalties and starting pretty much towards the back of the grid at this weekend's Grand Prix. I'll also get into upgrades. There are a couple here or there, which I'll get into. And then I will get into a bit of news that has happened today at Spa to do with a new manufacturer who is joining Formula 1 for 2026. And I think you guys know exactly who that is. And we'll get into that later on after we get through all of the teams. But let's get into, or actually before I do, hope all you guys are doing well, no matter what time it is in your part of the world, no matter what day you're having, no matter what time it is. I think I've already said that. I hope you're all doing, well, having the best day you could possibly be having, and hopefully with me tonight you will join me in previewing qualifying for the Belgian Grand Prix. That, of course, takes place tomorrow at, 3 p.m. UK time is when qualifying takes place tomorrow on Saturday. So let's get into the results first of Practice 1 and Practice 2. So Practice 1 started off wet, and it did finish wet, but in the middle we did get some dry running, which allowed for these lap times. So it ended up in Practice 1 with Carlos Sainz in P1, Charles Leclerc P2, a Ferrari 1-2, and then Max Verstappen 3rd, George Russell 4th, Lance Stroll in 5th place, which you may be surprised by, but looking at the Practice 2 results, that might actually be Stroll's kind of pace this weekend. Alex Albon was 6th, and then you got Ricciardo 7th, Tsunoda 8th, Hamilton 9th, and Perez in 10th, and then the rest of the field was Latifi, Zhou, Norris, Alonso, Vettel, Ocon, Magnussen, Schumacher, Liam Lawson, who is a reserve driver, I think, for the AlphaTauri team, getting in a practice day that all the teams have to do for their young drivers or reserve drivers. And then Valtteri Bottas was 20th, only doing 2 laps and didn't do a lap time. And then in Practice 2, a lot more representative running was had, and we are starting to see a bit of a pattern in terms of who is quick and who is not. And Red Bull definitely, in dry conditions, have the best car here at Spa Francorchamps this weekend. Max Verstappen was quickest by 8.5 tenths of a second. I know the gaps are a bit bigger here normally at Spa because of how long the lap is, but 8.5 tenths of a second is incredible in terms of a gap. Absolutely incredible there from Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc was 2nd. Lando Norris ended up in 3rd, with Lance Stroll 4th, Carlos Sainz 5th, and then Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Daniel Ricciardo, and Sergio Perez completing the top 10. And then the rest of the order was Alex Albon surprisingly up in 11th place. Good pace there from the Williams today in Friday practice. Zhou 12th, and then Tsunoda, Gasly, Vettel, Ocon, Magnussen, Bottas, Latifi, and Schumacher. Schumacher, I think, had some sort of problem with his car. I can't remember exactly what it was. May have to look on Twitter to see what that problem was, but let's now get into, before we get into the teams, the sector time data from practice 2. And it does point to an interesting picture in certain aspects. So, looking at the battle at the very front between Red Bull, Ferrari, and I guess you could throw Mercedes in there as well. Red Bull, like I said, they have absolutely the best car out of those 3 teams. In Sector 1, they're slightly quicker than Ferrari, and we know that Red Bull do tend to run with less power on a Friday compared to a Saturday. So to still be in the high-speed sectors, still quicker than Ferrari, is very impressive, and it shows that, when they turn the wick up fully, I think Red Bull are going to just be way too quick. Even though Max Verstappen is having a grid penalty for the race on Sunday, which I'll get into in a moment, the pace of the Red Bull is just way, way too good. And comparing Red Bull and Ferrari, I've got to say, I am very surprised at the pace of the Red Bull in Sector 2 to be pretty much, 0.6 of a second quicker than Ferrari. That really shouldn't be the case. If Red Bull are going to be quicker in Sector 2, it should only be about 1/10, maybe 2/10 at the absolute most, not 0.6 of a second. That is a dramatically big gap. Again, I don't know why that is. Maybe Ferrari were running a bit, or not enough downforce, because we know Ferrari this weekend are running with that, slimmer rear wing. Maybe that's why Ferrari were lacking speed in the second sector, and maybe Red Bull, because Red Bull are naturally and fundamentally so quick with their car in a straight line, maybe Red Bull are running more downforce. Therefore, in Sector 2, they're able to be that much quicker. We'll see tomorrow whether that is indeed the case, but that is very interesting that Red Bull was so much quicker in that sector. And then Sector 3, which is flat out except for the bus stop chicane at the very end. Sorry. God, my throat is not great. Sector 3, flat out except for the bus stop chicane at the very end of the lap. Red Bull, not the quickest in that sector. McLaren somehow had the quickest Sector 3 time with Lando Norris. I don't quite understand how that is. But, Red Bull, almost 1/10.5 quicker than Ferrari. So, in all of the sectors, Red Bull pretty comfortably quicker than Ferrari. And even though Max Verstappen is taking a grid penalty for the race on Sunday, so is Charles Leclerc, by the way. So don't worry, Red Bull fans, if you're concerned that you won't be able to fully utilise this pace. Verstappen and Leclerc are taking a grid penalty that will see them start at the very back of the field. From, say, Sergio Perez's point of view, with this type of pace we're seeing from Red Bull, it's looking very good for Red Bull, and I think definitely they can still have a very successful weekend despite the grid penalty for Max. And honestly, with this type of pace they've got over Ferrari, you can see on the far right-hand side of the screen, the ideal lap shows that they are 0.8 of a second quicker than Ferrari. If that turns out to be the case in qualifying and on Sunday, then even if Max Verstappen starts, because there's some other drivers who are going to be starting towards the back of the grid as well, if Verstappen starts, 15th or 16th, Max could still win the race from there if he has this type of pace advantage over everybody else. So, yeah, looking very, very good for Red Bull. They could really dominate this weekend's Grand Prix. And yeah, like I said, now looking at, say, Ferrari, it'll be interesting to see whether they decide to run some more downforce tomorrow to try and combat the lack of speed in Sector 2. But if they do that, they'll then give away probably a couple tenths of a second in Sector 1 and Sector 3. So there's nothing really they can do, Ferrari. I think Red Bull just fundamentally have a better car for this track than Ferrari do. So, yeah, I think Ferrari just got to try and capitalise on any missteps from the Red Bull team that they can try and exploit. But obviously, it does tend to be the other way round, where Red Bull are exploiting Ferrari's missteps. But, yeah, Red Bull clearly quicker than Ferrari. Sorry. With Mercedes, I think Mercedes are not quite running their car as quick as they could. I remember watching the Mercedes car in practice too on board. They looked as though they were running a bit more fuel, say, than other cars out there. So I do think Mercedes are going to be closer to the very front of the field, and I don't think they're going to be, as you can see there on the far right-hand side of the screen, where it says that they are the 5th quickest team in, practice too. That will not be the case in qualifying. That will absolutely not be the case. They will still be, say, the 3rd best team, but even if they gain that 2-3 tenths of a second, maybe even 4 tenths of a second, from practice to qualifying, that would see them be the 3rd quickest team, which they have been, pretty much all season long. They would still be miles behind the quickest team on the grid. So, from what we've seen so far, and there's been a lot made of, the flexi floors being banned and this new technical directive. From what I've seen so far, Mercedes are no closer to Red Bull and Ferrari than they were before this technical directive. So, yeah. I mean, obviously, tomorrow Mercedes might show a lot more speed. We saw in Hungary that they were slow as hell in practice, and then they ended up getting pole position with George Russell. And probably could have won the race if things had gone more their way in that Grand Prix. So, yeah, we'll see tomorrow. But from what I've seen so far, I don't think Mercedes are that quick, to be honest, with their car. So, yeah, it looks to me, out of the top 3 teams, Red Bull clearly quickest, Ferrari 2nd, Mercedes 3rd. And then, after that, looks as though, well, it's close, I'd say, to a certain extent between McLaren and Alpine. McLaren have brought upgrades to this Grand Prix to cut some drag off their car and to make it, I think, more efficient in a straight line. I'll get more so into that once I get to McLaren later on, when I get into some of the upgrades for some of the teams this weekend. But yeah, their straight line speed and their sector 1 and sector 3 times in the flat out very fast sectors, their pace is very good. It's a lot better than you would have expected it to be, say, a month or 2 ago with McLaren. But compared to Alpine, I don't think McLaren still have that special of a car. We can see in Sector 1, Alpine are half a tenth quicker. And then in Sector 2, it's, another half tenth back in McLaren's favour, maybe just over that. So in Sector 1 and Sector 2, they're pretty much McLaren and Alpine equal. And then in Sector 3, McLaren, for some reason, are 4 tenths of a second quicker than Alpine. I think Alpine definitely could have been a lot quicker in that final sector. So I don't think it'll be like that in qualifying. And we do tend to see Alpine be a lot quicker on a Saturday than they are on a Friday. And McLaren, I mean, they do tend to be a bit sandbaggy, I guess you could call it, on a Friday. But I do think Alpine will be quicker than they were today. As you can see on the far right of the screen of the ideal lap, it has McLaren as the, say, quickest midfield team, with Alpine 4 tenths of a second behind. I don't think that'll be the case. I think it will be probably Alpine and McLaren at least level with each other as the 4th quickest team. But I still think Alpine will be quicker than McLaren this weekend by a couple tenths of a second once they actually show what they've got tomorrow in qualifying. But McLaren still looking decent. And then after that, the most impressive part is Aston Martin. and their pace, which is mostly down to Lance Stroll. Because Lance Stroll, as you may have seen, in practice 1 was 5th. In practice 2, he was in 4th. Very good pace from him. And yeah, in Sector 1, not great pace there. Not really a surprise because the Aston Martin is pretty slow on the straights, has been all season. Sector 2, though, is very impressive for them to be, 2.5 to 3 tenths of a second quicker than the McLaren and Alpine teams. And then in Sector 3, they are lapping pretty respectably in that sector. So Aston Martin might be a bit of a surprise this weekend. I don't think they will be still as quick as McLaren and Alpine. I think Aston Martin will still be behind those two teams, but I think there's a good chance that, because both Aston Martins are not, taking penalties this weekend, I think there's a good chance that you could see them starting the race for Sunday in 11th and 12th or 10th and 12th, something like that, which would be, considering how quick they've been as of late in the races on a Sunday, would be a great starting position for them and could get probably a few points from Grand Prix. So look out for Aston Martin tomorrow because they could be the joker in the pack. And then after that, Alfa Romeo, I've got to say, surprisingly slow. I thought they'd be a bit quicker than they have been. Williams, a bit surprising in their pace. They're, by the looks of it, they're on pace with AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and quicker than Haas, which is, quite interesting. So we'll look out for Williams as well. But to me, coming out of practice, the pecking order looks to be, or what I think it will be in qualifying, based on what I have seen so far, is Red Bull quickest, and then Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren and Alpine 4th and 5th, kind of level. Maybe Alpine I'll put just ahead of McLaren. So let's say Alpine 4th, McLaren 5th. And then Aston Martin 6th, AlphaTauri 7th, and then maybe Alfa Romeo 8th, Williams 9th, Haas 10th. I don't think Williams will be quite as quick as they were in practice today, but we'll see tomorrow. Obviously, I could be very, very wrong. But I think now we'll go back to these pictures and we'll go on to the teams. And we'll start with Red Bull Racing. And yeah, Red Bull have had a very good day today. And as I said a few moments ago, Max Verstappen will be taking a grid penalty that will see him start at the very back of the grid. Not at the very back of the grid, 20th place, but he will start probably at best in like 15th place or something like that if he's able to out-qualify the other drivers who have a grid penalty. So, yeah. But despite that, Red Bull clearly have the quickest car here at Spa. Not a surprise. I said in my preview last night that I thought Red Bull would have the best car this weekend because their car just suits this track so well with the way the track flows and obviously the long power sections. So, or the long flat out sections, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, not surprised that they are the quickest team. The only thing that is surprising is just how quick they were. I thought maybe at most they'd be half a second quicker with Verstappen if they were quickest in practice 2. I did not expect 8 tenths of a second, or 8.5 tenths I think it was, over Charles Leclerc. That was, incredible pace from Verstappen, showing that it wasn't just the Red Bull car that was very quick, also Max Verstappen very quick around this track, which he always has been in the Red Bull, or even Toro Rosso back in 2015. So, yeah, absolutely dominant in practice too. And in qualifying, obviously, all that Max has to do is out-qualify all of the other drivers that have got a penalty so he can start as high up as possible with the penalty he has. So, it's looking good, I would say. His chances still of winning the race on Sunday, to be honest, because if he does have, like I said earlier, that type of pace advantage that he had in practice too, if he has that again in qualifying and the race, then he could still win the Grand Prix on Sunday. But in terms of tomorrow, I don't think Verstappen will he might still get pole position, but I don't think he will be that bothered about where he actually qualifies, as long as he out-qualifies all of the drivers with penalties. That includes, obviously, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. So, for Red Bull, they have got to put their focus on really Sergio Perez, who, got to say, was very poor today in the second Red Bull. He was 1.8 seconds slower than Max Verstappen. Now, plenty of times we do see Perez lacking pace on a Friday, so it's not a massive surprise that he's so slow at the moment, but he can't be that slow tomorrow. He absolutely cannot be, because if, say, Max Verstappen does get pole position but has to take a penalty, if Perez can be, say, the first driver in the field in qualifying that doesn't have a penalty, then obviously he would start the race from pole position. So I'm not saying he has to qualify second or even get pole position. Just make sure that he out-qualifies the two Mercedes and Carlos Sainz. That is Sergio Perez's job tomorrow. And I am pretty confident still that he'll be able to do that. Sergio does have a pretty good record here at Spa in qualifying and in races, and this has been a pretty decent track for him. So I am confident that Perez can start the race on Sunday in pole position. And if Sergio Perez wants to win this weekend, I think realistically that's the only way he's going to do it, because let's say Perez has a poor session, qualifies in 5th or 6th behind, say, obviously Verstappen and Leclerc, they'll take their penalties, but also like Sainz and Hamilton. And that means he would start then 3rd on the grid for the Sunday Grand Prix. If that was to be the case, because Verstappen would have so much pace coming through the field, it wouldn't be guaranteed that Perez would be able to win the race. Because if Perez starts the race on pole on Sunday by qualifying 3rd behind the, Verstappen and Leclerc, if that was to happen, that scenario, then Perez would probably be able to build a gap over, Sainz, Hamilton, Russell, and then by the time Verstappen gets into, say, the podium positions, say 3rd place, Perez probably would have built up such a lead that he would be able to keep his victory and wouldn't have to move out the way for Max Verstappen, which, to be honest, I don't think Red Bull would be that type of team to do that. So, from Sergio Perez's point of view, he's got to make sure that he, gets ahead of Sainz, Hamilton, and Russell in qualifying, so he can give himself a great chance at winning the Belgian Grand Prix on Sunday. And it would be a great victory for Perez if he was to get it. And, Perez is going to be taking a grid penalty probably at Monza for this new ERS that Max Verstappen is taking this weekend. So it'd be good if he could get a win in here, because he might not get another win in for a few races yet, will Sergio Perez. But like I said, when looking at the data, Red Bull have the quickest car. Max Verstappen does have his penalty, but I still think Red Bull have a very good chance, even with Sergio Perez, of winning the Belgian Grand Prix. And as long as Red Bull are 1st and 3rd in qualifying, Verstappen 1st and Perez 3rd, then I think they will be absolutely fine. And I think they've definitely got the pace for that. And maybe even if Perez can improve on his pace from today, they honestly could finish 1-2 in qualifying. So, yeah, we'll see what they can do. And they're looking very, very good. But let's get into some stats regarding qualifying for Red Bull and Verstappen. The Max Verstappen has taken 1 pole position here at Spa. That's from 2021. A great pole position it was in the very wet conditions. Red Bull have taken pole 3 times at the Belgian Grand Prix, obviously in 2021, but also in 2010 and 2011. In 2010, it was Mark Webber. 2011, it was Sebastian Vettel. And Red Bull have taken 30% of the pole positions on offer in 2022. So, not a great record at pole, or getting pole this year. But to be honest, hasn't really mattered, because they've always been really second on the grid, and still in a great position to win the race. And obviously Ferrari have made an absolute mountain of mistakes this season, which has gifted Red Bull their current championship position. So now we'll move on to the Ferrari team, and we'll go on to them now. Here we go. And yeah, I thought Red Bull would be quicker here, but I didn't think it would be maybe what do you call it? Maybe as I didn't think the difference would be as big as it is. And even though Ferrari, I think, could maybe make some setup improvements, and maybe they could run a tad more downforce to be a bit more competitive in the middle sector, I think Red Bull are just too good in all of the sectors here at Spa, and I just don't think there's anything really Ferrari can do about it. The only thing Ferrari can do is hope that it rains tomorrow, because if it does rain, even though Verstappen is a mighty wet weather driver, if you compare the Ferrari and Red Bull car, the Ferrari car is better in wet conditions. We have seen that this season. At Silverstone, for example, in the wet, in qualifying, the Ferrari was, I'd say, the better car that day compared to the Red Bull. So, yeah, if they can, or if it does rain, then they've got a good chance of maybe getting a pole position with Leclerc and getting him, starting at the front of that pack of drivers that have a penalty. And have a good chance also of Carlos Sainz, then if it does rain, of him starting the race on pole position. I mean, to be honest, Carlos has a good chance of starting the race on Sunday on pole position in the dry because of the lack of pace we've seen so far from Sergio Perez, but it would make it easier for Sainz to be able to start the race on Sunday on pole if it did rain. And to be honest, if it did rain, I think that'd probably give Ferrari a better chance of winning the race on Sunday because of the good pace they have in wet conditions. But Ferrari have just got to, this weekend, just give it their best and see what happens. There's nothing really specific they need to do. Carlos Sainz needs to qualify really third on the grid behind Verstappen and Leclerc, obviously, to be on pole position for Sunday's race. And then, we'll see what happens in the race on Sunday. And then for Charles Leclerc, try and out-qualify Verstappen so he can start at the head of that pack of drivers with a penalty. But other than that, I don't really see any other area where Ferrari absolutely have to work on, or something they absolutely have to do this weekend really to come out on top, because I just don't think they have fundamentally the pace to win this weekend, no matter how good they are. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough weekend for Ferrari. They don't have a great record here at Spa, to be honest. I know they won here in 2018 and 2019, but if you look in the last 15 years, Ferrari have not had too many great races on a Sunday and too many great qualifying sessions, to be honest. And I don't think qualifying tomorrow, unless it does rain, will be that much better, to be honest, for them. And let's get into some stats regarding the Ferrari team. So Charles Leclerc has taken a pole position here at Spa in 2019. That was his third pole position? I think it was F1 career in 2019 at this Grand Prix. But proving that, Ferrari have had such a poor record here in qualifying at Spa is this stat that Ferrari have only taken one pole position at Spa since 2008. And that pole position is Charles Leclerc's. The last 15 years or so, or 14 years at this track, they've never really been as competitive as you would hope them to be on a Saturday. They've always been at their best here at this track on a Sunday, where they've got, some wins, but qualifying normally is not a great day for the Ferrari team. Ferrari, though, have had the majority of success in qualifying this season. They've taken 61% of pole positions on offer in 2022, as you can see there at the bottom. So, yeah, they've been successful in qualifying this year, but historically, this isn't a great track for them in qualifying. And, Red Bull have a quicker car. So it's going to be a pretty tough qualifying session for them to be able to get pole position. But before I move on to to the other teams, I'm just going to quickly get up on screen the confirmed list of people who are taking a grid penalty for this weekend's race. So let me just get that up for you guys, and then I'll show it on screen so you guys know going into qualifying who to pay attention more so to. People who don't have a penalty. So here we go, and let me just get it up on screen. You can see here Chris Medland. So 6 drivers with penalties, and they will all be going to the back of the grid. Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Ocon, Bottas, and Schumacher. Those are the drivers that will be starting towards the back of the grid. And whoever qualifies, the quickest in this order will obviously start at the absolute front. And whoever's the slowest out of this 6, will be at the absolute back of the grid. So that's who: Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Ocon, Bottas, and Schumacher going to be starting towards the back. So with those penalties coming for those drivers this weekend, could that mean that this team, Mercedes, could they be in for a weekend where they finally get their first win in 14 races? That's the longest streak they've gone without a win, I think, since 2012 and the 2013 season, or going into the 2013 season. Well, looking at the pace so far, they look to be still clearly slower than Red Bull and Ferrari. From what we've seen so far, the technical directive has not really played a role, unfortunately, for the Mercedes team. They look to be, clearly the 3rd quickest team. The only hope, I think, for Mercedes is because Verstappen and Leclerc are taking their penalties. If Hamilton and Russell can qualify 5th and 6th, they will then start the race 3rd and 4th, which would put them in a great position probably to have a podium, or at least a great chance having a podium for Sunday. But also, we have seen this year that they are a lot quicker on a Sunday with their, with fuel on board, a race fuel load on board, compared to qualifying when it's, the fuel's low and they need to be able to fire their tyres up for that very special qualifying lap that obviously George Russell delivered in Hungary. If they can qualify 5th and 6th and then, start the race on 3rd and 4th, and they're not too far behind pace-wise compared to Ferrari in qualifying, Mercedes might still have a good chance of winning the Grand Prix on Sunday. So, it's not looking too bad for Mercedes, even though today has not been that great. So, if you are a Mercedes fan, don't panic, don't get too disappointed or depressed about it, because I still think Mercedes are because of the penalty situation this weekend, I still think they're in a pretty good position for at least a podium, maybe even a race win. So, don't get too panicky over the situation. But looking at the pace of their car today, I didn't think they would be in single lap pace. I didn't think they would be as quick as Red Bull and Ferrari, to be honest, but I didn't expect it to be, I didn't expect them to be as slow as they were, say. That was a bit surprising. But I think, honestly, a big reason why they were struggling today, Mercedes, was the cold conditions, which, we saw in Hungary in the race there, they didn't struggle with it that much there. And the reason is because, I think it's because they're able to look after their tyres so well, so their tyres don't overheat as much. And I think the reason in qualifying a lot of the time they're not able to be as quick as, they could be at times is because they tend to keep their tyres a lot cooler, which obviously does benefit them on a Sunday for the Grand Prix, which is why in Hungary, even though it wasn't very warm, they had pretty good tyre wear, a lot better tyre wear than a lot of the other teams on the grid. But looking at the weather forecast for Spa, tomorrow, or today, I think it's been about, 21, 22 degrees. Hold on a minute. Someone in chat saying no sound. If you can't hear me, then it must be something on your end, because other people can hear just fine. Anyway, tomorrow it is Looks to be a better weather day at Spa. More chance of sunshine at Spa tomorrow. And then on Sunday, it looks as though it's going to be a pretty sunny and, well, for Spa, quite hot day. So I think that was definitely playing a role today. The very cool temperatures were definitely hurting them because Mercedes just can't fire their tyres up as quickly as other teams, and especially Red Bull and Ferrari. And it does hurt them on a Saturday in qualifying. So, yeah, it should be better for them tomorrow, their qualifying pace, and they should have better tyre warm-up and tyre temperature. But as long as, again, they qualify 5th and 6th, which I think they will, because I don't think the pace today was truly indicative of their true speed, I think they will be absolutely fine. And I think they can win the race on Sunday. I think that's absolutely possible. They will need to, though, I think in qualifying, if, say, it is Red Bull on pole, Ferrari the second quickest team, and then Mercedes third, I think really if they need to be about 3-4 tenths of a second off Ferrari's pace to really illustrate that on Sunday, when they show better pace than they normally do, that they'll be able to close that gap and be competitive with Ferrari in the race on Sunday. And Mercedes, yes, they could win this weekend, but it's still up in the air. We'll have to see how the rest of their weekend goes. But let's get into some stats regarding Mercedes in qualifying and also Lewis Hamilton. So Lewis Hamilton has a great record here at Spa in terms of qualifying. He has taken 6 pole positions here at Spa since 2008. He had 1 pole position here for McLaren and the other 5 for Mercedes. Mercedes have also had a great record here in qualifying at Spa. Every year they have taken or have taken pole at Spa every year since 2013, except for 2019 and 2021. 2019, of course, it was Leclerc and the Ferrari, and 2021 it was Verstappen and the Red Bull. So pretty much for 10 years, Mercedes have been the kings of qualifying at Spa. And Lewis Hamilton's last pole position was Saudi Arabia in 2021, which was, 14, 15 races ago. So, yeah, pretty long drought for Lewis Hamilton, but I think he's getting a lot closer now to getting a pole position. So, yeah, I think if you're a Hamilton fan, it won't be too long, I don't think, until he gets pole position again in Formula 1. And finally, before I come to you guys in the chat, make sure, guys, to keep your comments coming in chat, because I will come to you guys in a few moments' time. Let me know, how do you think Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, and McLaren will get on this weekend? And how do you think they'll do in qualifying? How do you think the pace is looking? Who do you think, or who is your favourites for pole position tomorrow on Saturday? Let me know in the live chat. But I'm going to quickly now go on to McLaren. And yeah, their pace today was actually quite impressive. A lot quicker than I expected. Even though I still think that, I still think that Alpine will be at least level on pace with the McLaren team. And I think ultimately Alpine will probably have the quicker car. The unfortunate thing, though, for McLaren is, obviously, Norris has a grid penalty, as I showed, for the race on Sunday. So does Esteban Ocon and the Alpine, so it's not like Alpine have gained completely over McLaren on that. But because Fernando Alonso is not taking a penalty, and the McLaren driver that isn't taking a penalty is Daniel Ricciardo, a driver that this season has been just not good enough really in that car, it means that even if McLaren get a good qualifying result, then it won't really mean anything, because we know Alonso in qualifying will be quicker than Ricciardo, and in the race will be finishing quite a bit ahead of Ricciardo as well. So yeah, that is quite bad for McLaren. So really all they can do is just do the best they can and hope for the best, because Ricciardo, I think Ricciardo will probably be around the top 10, maybe 11th or 12th in the second McLaren, but I don't think he'll be as quick as Alonso, the other driver in that battle between McLaren and Alpine that isn't taking a grid penalty for this weekend's Grand Prix. So, yeah, decent pace of McLaren, but I don't think they'll be able to fully utilise it this weekend. To be fair, though, I think this is a good track for them to take a grid penalty because this track doesn't suit their car as well as it would, or as, say, the Zandvoort track we're going to next weekend will suit their car a lot better. So, yeah, I think it was still a good decision to take a penalty here. It's just a shame that Ricciardo in the second McLaren, who was obviously leaving at the end of the season, it's just a shame that he hasn't been able to perform consistently at the level of Lando Norris, because if he was, then he would still be able to get, some decent result for the McLaren team, considering the pace of their car at the moment and considering the pace they'll have around this track this weekend. So, yeah, McLaren, I think Lando Norris will probably get in the top 10 in, 8th, 9th place, something like that. Ricciardo probably just outside the top 10 in, 12th or something. And then, yeah, Norris to take the penalty. Ricciardo will probably start the race from, 9th or 10th on the grid. So that won't be too bad, but he obviously isn't going to finish, I don't think, as well as that in the race on Sunday. So, yeah, if you're looking at McLaren for, some good pace, I don't think we're really going to see good pace until next weekend at Zandvoort, where they will be a lot more competitive, that is for sure. But before actually I move on to you guys and your comments in the chat, I'm just going to quickly get into some upgrades and get into what upgrades there have been for the certain teams. So let me just get up the tweet from Toby Grunner from Automotor and Sport. And let me just find it. There you go. And I'll just get it up on screen for you guys so you can see. So here are the tech upgrades for the Belgian Grand Prix. Mercedes have got a front wing end plate, floor fence and edge, and rear wing flap and tips. To be honest, these upgrades are more track specific. They're not really upgrades that are for every track. It's more just for this track. Red Bull have a new engine cover and new rear wishbone shroud. I think their upgrades, Red Bull, are a bit more permanent than just for this track. Ferrari's upgrades, rear wing and beam wing, they are track specific. It's to cut some drag off their car. You can see here, though, with McLaren, they have brought a lot of upgrades. Diffuser, rear wing, beam wing, rear brake winglet, engine cover, cooling louvers, front track rod, fairing as well. The McLaren bringing some upgrades, good to see. Maybe that's why they were a bit quicker today than I expected. Alpine, they brought, rear brake ducts and floor fences. AlphaTauri, a lot of their upgrades, I think, were just track specific. And then for the other teams, Aston Martin, track specific upgrades. Their rear wing is quite slim, I have to say. Their new lower downforce rear wing. And then Williams, track specific upgrades. The same for Alfa Romeo and same for Haas F1 as well. So those are the technical upgrades. To be honest, though, with Red Bull and Ferrari, they do have upgrades this weekend that are bigger than that, which is the new power unit elements they're taking. For example, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari is taking on a new hybrid system. So, that should theoretically see an improvement in performance. And then with Verstappen, they're having with him a new ERS system. So that will be the biggest upgrades for those two teams this weekend. And with Mercedes, I've got to say, it doesn't seem, because there was rumours of a big upgrade for this weekend, it doesn't seem as though that Mercedes have actually... doesn't seem as though Mercedes have actually brought that big of upgrades. I was expecting something a lot bigger than what they've done, which is, again, front wing end plate, floor fence and edge, and rear wing flap and tips. I mean, they are upgrades, but they're nothing massive. They're quite small, to be honest. So, yeah, I was surprised that they didn't bring something a bit more to this Grand Prix. Maybe they'll bring something to Zandvoort or the Italian Grand Prix. We'll see as we get to those Grand Prix. Quickly, though, with McLaren, I wanted to, in terms of their upgrades, because they have brought the most amount of upgrades for this weekend's Grand Prix, I wanted actually to read out an article from Luke Smith at Autosport that describes what these upgrades are going to do for McLaren. So let's get into it. So he says the upgrades includes a lower drag rear wing, beam wing and rear corner assembly, all targeted at maximizing the aerodynamic efficiency of the parts for the weekend. When he says aerodynamic efficiency, he means in terms of cutting drag. The engine cover has also been updated, opted for smaller bodywork due to the reduced cooling requirements at Spa, which is also set to improve aerodynamic performance. McLaren has also updated its diffuser for this weekend, changing the rearward floor shape to increase the amount of aerodynamic load in the area. They did also upgrade their diffuser at the French Grand Prix as well, so clearly they think that's an area to be improved upon. He also says the front suspension track rod fairing has also been changed to improve or to provide better flow. A new winglet has also been added to the rear corner of the McLaren car to aid flow and aerodynamic load on the wheel assembly. So half their upgrades are to cut some drag off the car and to just prevent this car being as draggy as it has been this season, but also some small upgrades to improve the just general aerodynamic grip of the car as well. So maybe McLaren will be a bit better this weekend than we expected them to be. But guys, let me know in the chat, what do you think of the top 4 teams coming into qualifying tomorrow? Who do you think will be the quickest team out of the 4? How do you think they'll all do? Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren. And who are your predictions for pole position? Let me know in the live chat, and I'll get to your comments in a moment. Just wanted to say, though, for anyone new watching, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I will be live tomorrow for how many hours? About 5 hours, or just under 5 hours. I'll be live from 11:45 a.m. UK time until 1 p.m. to do a watch along for practice 3, and then from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. UK time, I'll be live for the qualifying build-up, and then from 3 till 4 p.m. UK time is qualifying itself, and of course I'll do a watch along for that, and then for about half an hour after the session finishes, I will do a reaction to qualifying and what happened in the session. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. And for everyone watching, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. But yeah, let's get into some comments quick. I can see in chat. It's not an absolute ton, but I'll read out as many as I can. And hello to everyone, by the way, who is in the chat, and hello to everyone who is watching. Great to see you all. Labgra says, just got back from taking my motorbike theory test. Hopefully it went all right. Is Ferrari taking an engine penalty? Yeah, as I said, Leclerc will be starting towards the back. And also Labgorilla says, or asks, is Verstappen taking a new engine? Yep, he is. Looking at those speeds, it seems that he could still win the race, or at least finish second to Perez. Yeah, if he starts out, because it'd be what, 6 drivers taking penalties. If he starts 15th at the head of that pack of 6 drivers that have a back of the grid penalty, he could still win the race from there. I mean, he won the race from P10 in Hungary, which, it's a lot harder to come through the field at Hungary than it is at Spa. So he could win the race on Sunday. There's no doubt about it. If he can get, say, up to... Because, I mean, the midfield cars will be running in about 5th place at the highest, won't they? With, Verstappen and Leclerc taking their penalties. So if Max can get up to 5th place by lap, 15? And only be, say, 15 seconds or so off the race lead, then he's got a good chance still at winning the race. There's no doubt about it. But if he loses too much time and ends up falling like 25 seconds behind by the time he gets to lap 15, then I think he might just be out of reach for a race win. What's up to Music Monster Man? Great to see you. Someone in chat saying genius idea from Red Bull. As you can see, Max has gone to the 4th power unit, which means he will keep it as much as possible as he can. Then he will go with the 3rd one, which was used in Hungary. Yeah, that is a good idea by Red Bull, and it means that they, as long as they don't have any more reliability issues on the power unit side, Red Bull should go the rest of the season now with Verstappen without having to take a penalty for a new power unit element, when Ferrari will have to still, even with Charles Leclerc after this weekend, because Leclerc is on his... I think this is his 4th new power unit, but I think some elements he's already gone like over even past 4 elements, or maybe he's on 4 elements. So Charles Leclerc will probably have to take another grid penalty at another race this season. Looking at the calendar, I would say Suzuka is a likely Grand Prix where Ferrari would take a penalty, because I think Red Bull will probably have the best car there because of how high speed it is. So, yeah, Leclerc will take another penalty. Carlos Sainz definitely will take another grid penalty this season. Carlos will probably take a grid penalty if it's not in the next in this triple header that we've got. You know, Belgium this weekend, Holland next weekend, and then Italy the weekend after. If it's not in this triple header, then it'll probably be maybe not Singapore. Maybe he'll take a penalty at Suzuka, and then maybe Leclerc will take one at Mexico or something like that. We'll have to see how that works. Nuclear Nick says, finding myself rooting for Hamilton for the first time ever. Hope he beats George. Manj Sher says, seems like Red Bull wants to embarrass Ferrari at Imola. Your thoughts? I think you mean Italy, not Imola. Because obviously we've already had the Imola Grand Prix. If you're confused, there are 2 races in Italy, of course. The one at Imola was in April, and obviously we're going to Monza in a couple weeks. And he also says, even the gods favour others over Ricciardo. Yeah, Ricciardo just, doesn't even have luck at the minute on his side. To be honest, Australian F1 drivers don't have luck anyway, so doesn't really make a difference. Paul James Squibb says, what are the odds on the F1 gods conspiring to get Ricciardo on the podium after all the contract shenanigans? He would need, like, the luckiest Grand Prix ever. No disrespect to Daniel Ricciardo. He is still a good driver. But the car's not quick enough to be, I don't think, even close to a podium. But he would need Ricciardo to put in, like, the best performance of the year by far. But also, he would need, like, 3 or 4 retirements or big problems for certain cars. So, yeah, I think we're asking probably for a bit too much there. Paul James Squibbs asks as well, how do they prevent teams from cheating with power units? Do they mark them somehow to prevent teams sneakily using new power units while claiming they haven't? Yeah, they all have, like, a different specification, so you can't just turn up with a different one magically without the FIA knowing. The FIA will absolutely know about, you know, what power unit's in the car. Not just what power unit, but what element is part of the power unit. Because a lot of teams at times will not just have a power unit in the car, they'll have, like, different elements from different power units. They'll have, like, a fresh turbo, but then an MG UK that is, like, 4 or 5 races old. So the FIA is on top of that completely, which is good, obviously. Because, obviously, you would have teams just turning up with new engines all of a sudden. Oh, yeah. One thing I wanted to show quickly before we move on with the rest of the show here is this. Let me just show it on screen for you guys. I think you'll be excited, especially if you have Disney Plus. Let me just show this. This is from Jensen Button, who says, exciting news. This was tweeted, by the way, about an hour ago or an hour and a half ago. He said, exciting news. I've been working on a 4-part series called Brawn, the £1 Formula 1 team, covering the incredible F1 Championship season of 2009. You don't want to miss this one. Coming soon to Disney Plus UK. So if you've got Disney Plus, then make sure to keep your eyes peeled on Jensen Button's Twitter account, because I'm sure he'll post more updates as to when the release date will be and stuff like that. So yeah, that's good to see. And it's good that this is going to get the coverage, the Brawn story that it deserves, because it is the biggest feel-good story, I think, in Formula 1 history, with what Brawn did. And it is, if you guys out there are football fans, obviously you'll know, Leicester City, when they won the Premier League in 2016, was the biggest story, biggest surprise, probably in English football history, considering the financial gap between Leicester and the biggest football clubs at the time, which were Manchester United, Chelsea, my club, Manchester City, and obviously Liverpool and Arsenal. So yeah, it's great that this is going to get the attention that it deserves, because it is an amazing story as to what happened. And I'm guessing the 4-part series, the first part will probably be the lead up to 2009 and probably the winter of 2008 and the pre-season of 2009. And then it'll get into the actual season itself in part 2, 3, and 4. That's my guess. Or at least that's what I would do if I was producing it. But yeah, that's what's going on with that. So keep your eyes peeled, guys, on that series. Good to see the Pawn Bot is here just in time. Let me get rid of them. Yeah, let me know, guys, if you've got any more thoughts you want to post in the chat before I move on with the rest of the show. So just looking on Twitter to see if there's any more news. I couldn't see anything at the moment, but I think I will move on with the rest of the show. What we're going to do, we've still got plenty to come up, by the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get into the rest of the midfield teams, and then we're going to get into the news about Audi, and we're going to get into a couple little other bits of a couple little other things that can help give you a good build up for qualifying tomorrow. So let's now go on to the Alpine team, who have had a decent day today. Judging from their sector data that I showed earlier, they look as though they're right on pace with McLaren so far, and I think tomorrow they will be at least on pace with them, and will probably get, because of how great both drivers are at this track. Esteban Ocon, for example, has been in qualifying in the top 10 every time at this track, except for 2016, where he made his debut for Manor, who, of course, at the time were the slowest team on the grid. And Fernando Alonso, even though he's never won here, has always been pretty competitive as well, despite his cars a lot of the time being quite slow. So yeah, both drivers will be fine. Alpine, I think, still have a quick car. And for the race on Sunday, I think they'll probably end up getting the... they'll probably end up scoring the most points out of the midfield teams, which of course is what they need to do really for the rest of the season to finish 4th in the championship. So yeah, looking good for the Alpine team. No real concerns for them, and their car looks absolutely fine. Not much really to say about Alpine other than that. The only shame, obviously, is that Esteban Ocon is taking his grid penalty, but they've got the number 1 at that team, Fernando Alonso, still in play without penalty, so I'm sure they'll be fine in terms of scoring some points on Sunday. Now we'll go on to Alfa Romeo. Yeah, surprisingly poor today. I don't know why they were so slow. I know Valtteri Bottas had he didn't do practice 1 basically, and then he did do practice 2, but wasn't that quick. And I know obviously he does have a grid penalty, does Bottas, for the race on Sunday, and Bottas will probably start 19th, I'd imagine, on Sunday in the Grand Prix. And obviously, Valtteri has had so many reliability issues this week, or not this weekend, this season. He's had so many problems with that Ferrari power unit, which we know has been so unreliable this season. So a shame for him. But yeah, Alfa Romeo don't seem to be that quick. And I think a big reason why that could be is their lack of upgrades, I think, might be starting to catch up to them. They did bring, I think, a new floor design to the Hungarian Grand Prix, but it doesn't seem as though that new floor has actually improved the pace of the car. Maybe it has by like a tenth or so, but it doesn't really seem as though it's moved this car that much forward compared to where it was before. So, yeah, they just need to hang on for dear life, really, so they can finish 6th in the championship, can the Alfa Romeo team. We'll now go on to Haas F1. Kevin Magnussen did, I think, break down in practice 1 with a battery issue, I think it was, in practice 1, which was a shame. But, yeah, looking at Haas's pace, they look quite bad at the moment. Again, since the upgrade they brought at Hungary, we haven't really seen any indication that this upgrade actually works and is actually making the car quicker. And they were P17 and P20, by the way, in practice 2. Very, very poor for them. So, yeah. Yeah, just very bad. I'm very surprised. And not just very surprised, but I'm very disappointed that Haas, with this upgrade, that Haas have been as slow as they have been. Because I was hoping we'd get like a good step forward, like a jump of like, I don't know, 0.3 of a second compared to the other teams, which would see them regularly at least contending to finish in the points at every Grand Prix. Maybe not finishing the points, certainly at every Grand Prix like McLaren and Alpine can bank on. But, you know, I was hoping that they would be able to really get more into that fight and would get back to where they were essentially at the very start of the season, where they were in that position, where they were always contending for points and finishing in the points as well in the first 4 Grand Prix. But that's just not the case at the minute. And yeah, I think Haas will probably be... Well, Mick Schumacher's going to start most likely at the very back of the field because he has a grid penalty for the race on Sunday. So yeah, Mick will start at the very back most likely, and Kevin Magnussen, I mean, yeah, if he qualifies, even if he qualifies like 18th or 19th, because of the penalties, yeah, he'll probably start up in 14th place. But I just don't see really where Haas F1 are going with this car this weekend. And again, a shame that they haven't really improved the pace since the new upgrade has been brought to their car. Next up, AlphaTauri. Yeah, no real difference with AlphaTauri. As I said in my preview that I did last night, their car just fundamentally isn't good. It might be good at the odd track here or there, but it's just not fundamentally good car. Not like last year where they could turn up really to any track and be competitive. This year it's pretty much the opposite, where it's actually quite rare that they're, you know, properly competitive, are the AlphaTauri team. So, yeah, disappointing for AlphaTauri, but that's been them this season. The car just fundamentally isn't good enough. It's not like a certain area. I mean, I think Pierre Gasly has said that the rear end of the car has been pretty dire this season, but I think front and rear end are pretty bad on this AlphaTauri car. So, yeah, that's where they are at the moment. But let's get into Aston Martin, because Aston Martin were very interesting today. Lance Stroll qualified 5th, and not qualified 5th, sorry. He finished 5th in practice 1 and then finished 4th in practice 2. Nobody saw that coming. Certainly not myself. Maybe that slimmer rear wing is really helping them this weekend. We'll see when qualifying comes about, whether that is, or whether that really does help them. But yeah, I don't really know what to say in regards to it, because we weren't expecting that at all. Does Lance Stroll legitimately have the pace to be at the upper echelon of that midfield fight with, Alonso, Norris, Ocon, Ricciardo? I'm not sure. We'll have to see tomorrow, but they might be, I think, the 6th quickest team after, obviously, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, but then McLaren and Alpine as well. So they'll still be competitive, and with both drivers not taking a penalty, Aston Martin could probably start the race with at least one of their cars in the top 10. So looking very good for the race on Sunday, but qualifying I'm still not sure, because we have seen a lot of these with Aston Martin where they'll have a decent practice session on a Friday, but then in qualifying on a Saturday, they will disappoint horribly compared to what their arguable potential is with their car. And finally, we'll go on to Williams and Alex Albon looking pretty good. Maybe it's this new upgraded Williams car that's really helping Albon be as competitive as he has been so far in the practice sessions. Because, the Williams car is, compared to the old Williams car that we saw up until the British Grand Prix, the new Williams car is about a second a lap quicker. So around a track like this, you would probably see or tend to see those upgrades really shine quite a bit more than you would say at Hungary. Even though, Hungary is a high aero reliance track, it's a shorter track than this one. So you don't get that massive lap time gain that you could around a track like this. But to be honest, until we see the race, I can't really say 100% what Williams are going to be like this weekend. I think obviously the penalty situations with the 6 drivers I've mentioned, Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris, Ocon, Bottas, Schumacher, that will help them, and they'll probably start the race like 12th and 13th or 12th and 14th, which would be pretty good for them. But whether they actually turn it into a points finish on Sunday, I don't really know. But I think we could see with Williams probably Albon getting into Q2, but then Latifi probably still getting knocked out in Q1. But I think I will now move on from those teams, and that's my preview done for the teams. And now we are going to get into the big news here at Spa that took place today, and that is that Audi have officially entered Formula 1 as an engine manufacturer, and they will be entering in 2026. They haven't announced who they'll be entering with, but it is heavily rumoured, and, well, it is 95% sure going to be the Alfa Romeo / Sauber team for 2026. And great that they have finally come into Formula 1, obviously. The regulations becoming a lot more road relevant has helped towards this, and we do expect that the other VW-owned, asset, I guess you could call it, Porsche, we expect them to be announcing a partnership with Red Bull for 2026 quite soon. Hopefully, not too far away, that announcement will come. Surprised, honestly, it didn't come at the Red Bull ring, that announcement with, Red Bull Porsche for 2026, which is almost certainly going to happen. But yeah, great to see this happening, and it's been a long time coming. I think they said the third guy from left to right, I think he, the guy stood next to Mohammed Ben Sulayem, which isn't Stefano Domenicali, if that makes any sense. I think he was saying in his quotes that it has been kind of a long time coming because they have had interest in entering Formula 1 for a few years, but they were just waiting for the right type of regulations ready to come into Formula 1. And thankfully, they are going to be in Formula 1. And this is what he had to say. So he said, was it Duesman? That's his name. He said, quote, "I want to officially announce that Audi is officially registered as a power unit Formula 1 manufacturer, so we will in 2026 start racing in Formula 1. Racing motorsport is in the DNA of Audi. Audi has always been active and been successful in motor racing. I think it's a perfect timing due to the new rules that were established for us to enter F1. There are many aspects. One, we have decided to be a full electric car manufacturer. If you guys don't know, Audi as a, car manufacturer, they are getting rid of the combustion engine, I think, from 2026 on. So they're going fully electric in 4 years' time. So that's a big reason why they're coming into Formula 1 for 2026, because the electric element is becoming a lot more important in the F1 regulations for 2026. And he says, and F1 did change the routes in a way that we can hunt with a very high electric part of the powertrain with renewable fuels. And Formula 1 have instilled a cost cap that makes it very attractive for us to enter now. And that is obviously good that we do have a cost cap. So, yeah, great that Audi are in Formula 1. And like I said, they most likely will join up with the Sauber team. And we did, though, get some news a few hours ago. Let me see if I can just quickly get it up on screen for you guys. I will be able to. Let me just get it. Where can I find it? There you go. Let me just get it up on screen if I can. There you go. So Alfa Romeo has announced that they will end its partnership with Sauber before the end of 2023. Which I am a bit surprised at ending it that soon. I thought that maybe they would continue up until the end of 2025. So then it would, be a smoother transition then for Sauber, going from Alfa Romeo then to being basically partnered with Audi. But yeah, that's Alfa Romeo's decision. To be honest, they haven't really had that much help from Alfa Romeo. They've only been Alfa Romeo in name only. So yeah, it's not really an absolutely massive bit of news, but just news anyway. So from but in 2024 and 2025, it will be, instead of the Alfa Romeo team, it will be the Sauber F1 team. They'll already probably, though, have some financial help from Audi and probably some resources boost from them as well. Going into 2026, I just noticed this comment from this guy, Pedro, saying most probably with Porsche engines until 2026 or a rebrand. That is absolutely not going to happen. Got to remember, Sauber have had Ferrari engines since 2015 or 2010. That's the time it's been since Ferrari, or since Sauber have had Ferrari engines or power units, whatever you want to call it. So that's not going to end. That'll end probably at the end of 2025. So there's not going to be a Sauber Porsche or Sauber Lamborghini deal. That's absolutely ludicrous. But there you go, guys. Audi in Formula 1, and we cannot wait to see them join in 2026. And hopefully, instead of it just being the same 3 teams, it'll be the same 4 teams in Formula 1. Now, I think I'm going to get into some analysis again for anyone who missed it yesterday. I'm going to get into some analysis in regards to the technical directive that it is in force for Spa, because it is, of course, very, very important. So, as we've seen this season, porpoising has been an issue. It's always expected to be an issue this season, but it's been a bit more prevalent than maybe expected, and it has caused health concerns. After the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, the FIA were very concerned, and everyone was very concerned that it was probably causing micro concussions because of the bouncing we saw in Baku. The Mercedes cars were especially bad, also the Ferrari cars and others. But I think the Haas cars were pretty bad as well. So the FIA decided to do something about it. This was their statement. I think for the Canadian Grand Prix, the technical directive has been issued to give guidance to the teams about the measures the FIA intends to take to tackle the problem. These include, number 1, closer scrutiny of the planks and skids, both in terms of their design and the observed wear, And number 2, the definition of a metric based on the car's vertical acceleration that will give a quantitative or quantitative. That word is very hard to say. I've got to be honest with the amount of T's in there. Limit for acceptable level of vertical oscillations. The exact mathematical formula for this metric is still being analysed by the FIA, and the Formula 1 teams have been invited to contribute to this process. And the technical directive was, I think, absolutely finalised by the British Grand Prix, but it didn't come in force till this weekend's Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. And I'll get into now a bit as to what the technical directive was aimed at preventing. So you can see here, this is the orangey or the plank. I think you guys you should know what a plank looks like, to be honest, if you're a human being that's older than 12 years old. Yeah, you can see the plank here underneath the car. So essentially, with this whole flexi floor business, the belief is that, so you can see the front of the plank here, the front of the plank being being towards the tyres, the front tyres, and being on the furthest right part of the plank. That is the only area of the plank that the FIA would actually measure in scrutineering to see if there was excessive wear or if there was, anything going on that shouldn't be with that. So, towards the rear of the plank that you can see on the far left-hand side, that's where it is reported that certain teams, maybe Ferrari and Red Bull, were flexing their floors because the FIA were not measuring or looking at those areas and flexing them a lot more than, I think, the 2mm tolerance, I think it was, with the flexibility. And there was, arguably, I think up to even 7 or 8mm of flexibility with these flexi floors. So the FIA decided, once they discovered this, to make the new technical directive, or this new rule that they've basically made for the new season as well for 2023, that the plank, and in terms of the flexibility of the plank floor, it has to be absolutely stiff. No movement really whatsoever. Maybe, a millimeter, but nothing more than that, to prevent the teams, gaining time with a movable aerodynamic device. But there is some great analysis that I found from Mark Hughes, a top journalist when it comes to Formula 1, and he's also has a Sky Sports F1 column and actually works in the commentary box alongside David Croft and Martin Brundle. He had a great analysis about this technical directive in regards to Mercedes and whether it would bring Mercedes into play and be able to bring Mercedes into position where they'll be able to fight consistently for race wins. And this is what he had to say. So let me just bring this up a bit and let's get into it. So he said, quote, with quite a different upper body aero concept of Red Bull and Ferrari, Mercedes' greater area of exposed floor was effectively a cantilever or lever. Again, I've never seen that word before, so don't actually know how to pronounce it, making it much more difficult to control. Later limitations in the mechanical aspects of the suspension became apparent in controlling the car's ride. It then became clear that Ferrari and Red Bull had interpreted the regulations concerning the mounting of the underfloor plank differently and were able to allow the plank to sink further into the floor as it touched the ground, giving a cushioning effect to the ride. Therefore, what that basically means is Ferrari and Red Bull were able to run their cars lower to the ground than Mercedes could. They would still have porpoising, but it wouldn't actually affect the performance of their car as much as it would for Mercedes. And then he says, from Spa this weekend, that interpretation will no longer be considered valid. If, as is believed by other teams, that mounting method would make a 5 to 6mm lower rear ride height feasible, it would potentially be worth around 2 to 3 tenths of a second of lap time. And obviously, with that, that method or interpretation being removed, the thought is that that is supposed to bring Mercedes 2 to 3 tenths of a second closer to Ferrari and Red Bull. Obviously, so far in practice, we have not seen that so far. And then he says, the Mercedes, even though it set pole in Hungary due to a favourable set of circumstances, no healthy Red Bulls in Q3, Ferrari way out of the tyre temperature window, was still around half a second off the ultimate pace. So the Spa technical directive could well help Mercedes reduce its deficit to the front, but to take on Ferrari and Red Bull in equal terms, it is likely going to require more development, and he is right with that. Because around this track as well, the gaps are always a lot bigger than they are at most tracks on the calendar, so they're going to need more than just this technical directive to actually be on the pace with Red Bull and Ferrari. So it will maybe, when they really show their real pace, it will, bring them closer, but it's not going to be the thing that brings them right into play as a consistent race-winning or race-win contending team. If you're a Mercedes fan, just don't go too overboard with expectations, because Mercedes still need to upgrade their car quite a bit if they are going to be title contenders for next season, but also race-win contenders and even win a Grand Prix before the season is over. So that is your technical directive analysis, I guess you could call it. And let's finally get into the lap and the track here at Spa and what it takes to have a good lap here, which obviously in qualifying is very, very important. So here is, of course, the track map, the longest lap on the calendar, and it is, in my view, the best racetrack in the world, and that includes every racetrack in the world, not just the tracks on the F1 calendar. It tests the cars for absolutely everything, how much power it has, the reliability, its aerodynamic and mechanical grip, and it tests the driver ability as well to overtake, defend position, and their skill through the high speed, slow, and medium speed corners. And in the wet, which is, it does rain quite a bit here at Spa, it does test the driver's skill when it comes to that as well. So we're going to look at this onboard lap, which is quite a bit different, obviously, to an F1 car. I would show an F1 onboard lap, but I don't want to get copyrighted for this stream. This is from a guy, I think, called Martin Lucas. So make sure to check that guy out on YouTube. But he's coming into turn 1 now. You can see the gravel trap now on the exit. Hitting the apex of that corner, not necessarily important. As long as you just don't stray too wide and get a good smooth exit, that's all that matters, really. Because obviously, you don't brake until Les Combes, which is quite a bit on. Eau Rouge in the dry, flat out. In the wet, you just got to make sure you keep the car as straight as possible, really. Any corrections will see you in the barriers. Then you come onto the Camel Straight. This is the highest speed part of the circuit. And then you come into Les Combes, which is a, with these cars, pretty fast right-hander. Then into a medium speed left-hander. And then quite a high-speed right-hander as well, where there is, to be honest, a lot of grip through that corner. Then you come into this slow-speed right-hander that goes downhill, which, to be honest, just goes on forever. Very important to hit the apex of that corner. If you stray wide, you're going to lose about 3 or 4 tenths of a second. He takes the shortcut there, but that's not actually where the track goes. They are going to go into that no-name left-hand corner that you guys will be used to, as he comes now down to Pouhon. And this is all about, obviously, hitting the apex to a certain degree, but it is about as much. All it's about is how much speed can you carry through the corner. The most speed you can carry will help you massively for your qualifying lap. Then you come into the Fanny chicane. You've got to make sure the front and rear end stay absolutely in check through those corners. If you have any moments on the front or rear end, then it will hurt your lap so much because of how tight the track is. And then you come through the Paul Frere curve towards the end of the middle sector. The middle sector, by the way, is the most important sector on the track when it comes to, I think, qualifying. Obviously, the first sector very important, and the third sector very important for, grabbing that extra straight line speed. But the middle sector is really where the time is made up for the drivers. Through their Blanchimont and out to the final bus stop chicane. And really, the bus stop chicane is just about braking as late as possible, attacking the inside curve of the first part of the bus stop, and then just getting a smooth exit on the exit, using as much of the exit curve, and then coming to the line. And that is a lap at Spa Francorchamps here at Spa. So, guys, that is, I think, it for my qualifying preview. And thanks, guys, for joining me for this qualifying preview. And reminder, if you are new to the channel, But yeah, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this over the weekend. I will be live tomorrow at 11:45 a.m. UK time, all the way till 4:30. And yeah, just a reminder, so 11:45 a.m. UK time till 1 p.m. I'll be doing a watch along for practice 3. And then from 1 till 3 p.m, a build up to qualifying. Then from 3 till 4 p.m. UK time, the qualifying watch along itself. Then a half an hour reaction to the session. And then on Sunday, I'll be doing a 5-hour coverage for the race. 12 p.m. UK time, we get going for the race preview. That lasts until 1:30 p.m. UK time. Then from 1:30 till 4 p.m. UK time, I'll be live for the race watch along. The race begins at 2 p.m. UK time, if you're wondering. And then for an hour after the race finishes, I'll be live to react with you guys to what has happened in the Grand Prix. And I will probably, if it's an interesting enough Grand Prix and weekend, I'll probably do a stream on Monday as well. So if you are new to the channel, again, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. And as well, for everyone watching, if you haven't already, don't forget to smash the like button and share this video and channel everywhere you can. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at ChazHD5 and join my Discord server, link below in the description. And guys, until qualifying day tomorrow, it's been me, ChazHD. Goodbye.